8 o'clock and we do have enough for a quorum now, so we'll call the, well, should have been the regular meeting. But we had to postpone it, hoping that we would have the new members here. We do have one here. But we'll call the February 21st meeting of the Ocilla-Irwin County Industrial Authority to order. Chris, you want to give them a prayer?
All right, that's right. Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this chance to gather. Thank you for each person here, and I pray that you give us wisdom in all that we say and do. I pray that what we do be pleasing to you, and we pray that you just bless our community and our industrial authority. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next thing is the agenda approval. I'll give you all a second to look over it, and then I'll hear a motion to approve the agenda. You got the report roll?
I do.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, next thing is to welcome the new members. That's pretty simple, Kendall. One of our new members, we also have Rodney Miller. And Rodney had a prior engagement in Tennessee, I think.
Yep.
And then Miss Karen was unable to attend.
So that's the concert.
Okay, all right. So, just wanted to say welcome to y'all. Glad to have you. Next thing on the agenda is the December 6th minutes. I'll give y'all a minute to read over those, and then I'll hear a motion to approve those.
Is that the last meeting we had?
It is.
Okay.
And you were absent on that one, so.
Yeah, they got me present, and I was, no, you got me absent, I'm sorry, I can't read, Tim. I make a motion we approve.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next thing on the agenda is the financials. You have to look over those. If you have any questions, I'll hear a motion to approve those. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Sorry.
Have a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, old business. At one time I had spoke with y'all about Daniel's Welding and the land directly behind his facility there. The only portion he is interested in, if you, I guess you would say the west fence that goes down the side of his property, if you extended it back toward the creek line, which I think is the actual land line there, that area there, which so basically the creek behind his property. It's of really no use to us. There's not really anything we could do with it. Wouldn't have access to it without his property. And most of it is very low. If it ever rains very much, then it backs up basically to where his current land line is. He said there is a small portion of that land that he could use and he wouldn't mind having it. He doesn't mind paying a reasonable fee for it. But wanted to know if we would consider selling that to him. We need to, one, I don't want the industrial authority to take any expense on to do this, so I would have him see about getting it surveyed, do anything that there would be an expenditure for, and see if we could settle on a reasonable price to sell that to him, if that be the pleasure of the board.
Could you ask him to give us a plat so we could look at it and see, cause I don't know, I mean, at least something to look at so we could say, okay, I know what you're talking about, but
Currently, the only portion that we own, or we still own, is between, I guess it'd be Frontier, where DW and them owned, where the horse arena, between there, where the horse arena is, and up to the Daniel's fence, and there's just kind of a flag piece that goes back in there behind his current property, and just follows the run of the creek. But I'll get him to get a map.
Or just something, you know, doesn't have to be an official plat, but just a drawing or something on Google or whatever. So.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? All right. Well, I'll get that prepared for y'all and get with him, and we'll see about getting that done. New business. This being the actual first meeting of the year, since we didn't have a January meeting, we need to appoint new officers. I'm currently the chairman. The mayor is currently the vice chairman, and I'm not sure who's the treasurer.
Sherry Rhodes was.
Okay, Sherry was, and Sherry is rotating off the board, so we'll need to elect new officers. So I guess I'll take nominations on who y'all want to serve in those three positions.
Are you okay?
I'm with you. Thanks, Scott.
You're doing a good job.
If it's y'all's pleasure, I'll continue to serve as chairman. Mayor, do you have any issue continuing to serve as vice? All right. And we'll need to elect the secretary treasurer. Obviously, Tammy takes care of the secretarial duties, but according to the bylaws, we have to have a treasurer, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, who would like to serve as treasurer? Who would be open to that fact? Don't everybody speak at
I
once.
know, right?
Volunteer,
So
leave all
eager,
their
yeah. Ready?
Okay. So I'd have Scott Carver as chair, Melvin Harper as vice chair, and Randy Crenshaw as treasurer. So I'll hear a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, next thing on the agenda is the economic development report. So Ms. Susan, I'll let you.
Okay, great.
Read.
In our last meeting in November, whenever we said our priorities were to investigate industrial park, housing, and then come up with some type of game changer economic development idea that we could differentiate ourselves from other communities. The housing one, I'll start with that because that's the one that we're getting the least traction on, but we're working diligently to find maybe private partnerships to look and investigate any type of housing development. So work in progress, nothing really to report. On the industrial park side, we last reported that we met with Scott Purvis from Georgia Power, and they conducted for us a site assessment matrix, which looks at every property in the county and gives it a ranking percentage against all other properties in the state of Georgia, not just in Owen County. So we can first look at what's available, and they look at things such as ownership, is it single versus multiple, current zoning, access to highways, access to businesses. He's got that report ready, and so he's going to present it to Hazel and I on March the 8th. And so once we see what that report comes back, we can then see what properties may make sense for us to have some type of industrial park or opportunity there. And then from that, we'll figure out, is it a traditional industrial park? Is it a warehousing type park? Is it a no kind of park? So we're very much in the exploratory phase, but our big next step is March 8th when we get the site assessment work back.
And that can be anywhere in the county.
Yeah, he's looked at the entire county.
He's looking at closer to I-75 and
He looked at, he looked at the entire county,
or
so.
close to Urban County. Okay.
Yeah, he looked at the entire county, and so we'll see.
And he ranks it
Well,
according
he
to
gives it a
other-
percentage, like, he showed us one plot that they had done a while back, when Horace was alive, and they looked at the plot of land that your dad on
Mhm.
32 and Lax Highway. And that particular plot, for example, came back with like a 75% score. So what that meant is of all of Georgia, the best place to put an industrial park is 100%, right? So 75% is not the best, but it's not the worst. And then they look at even shape of the plot, like, you know, the land and stuff like that. So we'll get an idea of that kind of percentage. And the reason we look at the whole of Georgia is because you're competing against the whole of Georgia. It doesn't do us any good to know what's the best in Irwin County if it's low in the whole state of Georgia.
And so once we get that, we could take that to officials and say, here, this is something we've got. Where's some money that we can, you know, use to pay for it?
Yeah, if we want to
If we
buy
go
it,
that far.
if we decide to do that. I think the real next step would be see what we got.
Yeah.
Does anything make sense? And then what does it make sense for? What do we have the most likely to succeed? So this is going to, you know, be a step, not a quick process per se, but it'll work through it.
It changes where used to we just say we need money. We've actually got a plan
Right.
to at least present to somebody.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Good deal.
So that's on the industrial park, and then we started a competition for our community or people outside our community to give us ideas on what they think we could do to help our industrial development, economic development. The competition ends February 29th. We've promoted it on Facebook, and it was in the Solar Star. We've gotten 2,400 people have seen it on Facebook. It got shared 11 times. To date, we've gotten in one response, and it was a couple of paragraphs, which, quite frankly, I'm not surprised. But we'll see, you know, what comes back in the next 2 weeks. But in the meantime, we have talked about maybe Irwin County being the farm tour community of not just the Southeast, but the U.S. I did meet with Tyler Harper back in December to see if the Department of Agriculture could help us maybe develop that idea, because one of his goals is to help educate people better on what agriculture is in Georgia. I did follow up with him last week. He said he had handed it off to one of his people, and one of his people were supposed to get back in touch with us. They have not, so he was going to follow up on that. So we will continue to develop that. I'm hoping the Department of Ag will get involved with that, so we get some outside looking in, because it's going to be, to make something like that work, it can help with, you know, a reason to travel to Irwin County for people outside of Irwin County. One reason we think it can succeed is because of just looking at what Rodney is getting at his farm, of people coming from Tallahassee, from Jacksonville, from South Carolina, just spend a weekend at the Miller farm. And so it can help us maybe with our hotels, Airbnb. Maybe it gets us where we can get our current restaurants more supply and our future restaurants more supply. So it could be an industry driver that affects a lot of people. But it's going to be a lot of logistics and complication, and we got to figure out if there is a financial model that goes with it. So
And currently, there's not one in Georgia.
there's so fun, and I talked to Tyler. There's not one in Georgia. Now there's tours like of strawberry farm, vineyards, you know, so more produce oriented, but not row crop oriented. And Tyler didn't know one of Georgia or the Southeast, and of digging, and no one's can think of even looking at the Midwest. So it could really be something pretty unique, focusing on, you know, people want to see these big combines and how, you know, you get, or peanuts in the ground.
The
Right.
whole bit.
Yeah,
Now the
the-
Irwin County's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's just a great idea. It's just-
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of logistics.
A lot of logistics to go with it.
Have you
So,
talked to Cheryl Smith? She's with the department.
of ag.
And
Okay.
she's their agritourism manager.
Oh, okay.
And so I know her through the plan and stuff, but
All right. I'll follow up with.
She- I
I'll
can
follow up
put
with the.
introduce you to
Well, let me
her.
follow up with Tyler and say, hey,
Okay.
is Cheryl who you handed it off to?
Well,
So we.
they don't want to jump right.
We
Yeah.
don't step on each
That's
other's
right.
Yeah, I don't want to. I want Tyler.
But Cheryl,
Because the hope would be maybe this is something that the Department of Ag can help fund to create the concept,
she's
right?
there,
So-
when you said this before, I didn't think about her, but
Yeah,
she's
no,
there.
but she's the
She
ag
was at,
tourism. Yeah, so she, hopefully that's who he's
She
gonna
was
connect
at,
us with.
it's called, I want to say NAFTA, but I know that's not it. It's North American something. It's like agritourism conference that she was
okay.
at just like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, cool, okay, great. And maybe I'll suggest that's who Tyler connects us with.
And Mrs. Driscoll, I want to say that it's gotten probably more buzz than the actual stats of numbers that you've given, and it's been talked about. I know I've had the discussion in the barber shop, at almost like a Sunday school type of church. I have to bring everybody back in. This is not the place, but people are thinking about it, and I want to say that. It hasn't come, the idea, the big idea hasn't come so very easily because of how we are uniquely proportioned. And when it happens, and it's going to happen, when it happens, someone's going to have like this gigantic aha moment, because we are a unique county. We are, and where we're positioned, and I appreciate your research and your attention. But it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I'm glad
It kind
to
of
hear.
surprises me because everybody knows what we need to do, but nobody comes forward.
Well, and then too, I think the way that that it's being asked, it requires some
Yeah,
structure.
some work, yeah.
Some legitimate structure and strategy. There's gotta be a strategy behind it. How do we get?
You know what, maybe, should we, once the deadline's passed, should we have like a community forum, and I'll figure out how to facilitate it, where we could brainstorm, to your point, some
Well, I'm all for stuff
some
like that, but
people,
everybody's-
You know,
some
we
people
throw out-
may
we-
not want to put the structure, because it does take work,
You know, we
right?
threw out ideas, and some of them, I think the idea came in about dredging the L.I. Paul
Right.
River, and so, and I think some people took it like they're fixing
Literal.
to spend
Right,
this
right.
money, and I don't know what's wrong with ideas. You know, I don't get that. But anyway, that's just me.
I know someone said, well, I have something, but I haven't. So, well, why haven't you submitted? Well, I don't want anyone to steal it.
Well, some of them are theirs too.
Yeah, but there's an incentive with that, but it's kind of hard to explain to everyone.
Yeah, so what do you think? I mean, do you think if we had some type of a community brainstorm session, that it would be,
I'm for it. I'm just one person.
yeah, no, I'd love to hear the group.
I think that that's the way I've been involved in a lot of big ideas all over the world. I'm telling you, you gotta have everybody come together, check the egos at the door, right? There's no bad idea, right? And start slapping stuff on the wall. They call it spitballing, right? Yeah. On the just get whiteboards everywhere and start writing it down and then go, then everybody goes, well, that's a bad. I've been told I had a lot of bad ideas. I've never hurt my feelings. That's a bad idea. This would work. Like this might fit the strategy. You know what I mean? And that we don't do this. We're just going to sit here for the rest of our lives. It's going not going to happen.
Yeah, what I'll do is because we're in February now, so we probably should try to do something in April so people could get it on their calendars, right?
Well, I know this. I know this ain't church, but this is God country. There's a Old Testament prophet Habakkuk. He says, "Write the vision and make it plain upon the table, so that the people who read it can run with it."
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how bright of an idea you have. It never truly. Ask anyone who's done something. It never truly manifests until you write it down, until the people, to the community sees it in writing and say, this is what we're doing. Well, maybe this one.
Yeah, well, and you bring that, we had our leadership Irwin session last night, and we talked about a great leader always is able to create that vision, and not just create it, but articulate it and communicate it. And a prime example of that is what we've done with the Downtown Development Authority, and with Cyrus literally drawing out the vision of what downtown can look like, right? And so I don't know if people have noticed, but there's now, instead of a black building, there's a green building. You're going to notice in the next week, instead of a purple building, there's going to be the dark blue building. And you're going to notice in a few weeks, there's going to be, where's Jimmy? There's going to be a uplift of the awnings and the window treatment of the old theater building. You're going to notice Anytime Fitness is going to have a new look. A lot of that came from, just to your point, showing the vision of what it should look like, and then we can get it moving. So we're getting a lot of traction on the downtown development authority. Even, it looks like Bruce Daniels is gonna, where the old Pepperoni Grill was, we're gonna spruce up what that front looks like. So we're slowly working on all the buildings downtown that, were more blighted, to get those, because again, you have to look like you,
That's right, yes.
yeah, you have to look attractive, which to that point is separate discussion, Mr. Mayor, but, I don't know if you've noticed where we power washed some of the buildings, he also power washed the sidewalks for us, and what a difference it made. Check in front, especially on, what side is that, the east side? Or no, west side? Oh, no, south side. I'll get my side of the street right in a minute. The south side. So I don't know if that's something the city could go through and power wash all the sidewalks, or if that may be something we need to take up with the DDA to fund or something, but,
I'll definitely check.
okay, awesome. 'Cause
Maybe,
then-
maybe every quarter, or maybe every 6 months, or maybe once a year, but have maybe the city, and the industrial authority, the DDA, everybody pitch in a little bit of money, and, cause it doesn't cost much.
No.
But if you look, I challenge everybody to walk down the street on the south side, cause we left some, I did mine, and we left some just to show you the stark contrast. I mean, it is absolutely, something we need to do, cause when people come to us, why do they wanna stay? Why would you stay?
Question, yeah. Or driving through, why would you wanna stop? I'm sure we've all been traveling and been through places like, yo, I wanna stop here, like, let's
Neat little town, yeah.
Well, and the one thing we talked about on the Game Changer is that, you know, we've got to be different. You know, our communities around us have, and, you know, they're ahead of us on having the infrastructure for manufacturing and stuff. And then we also talked about, you know, when one community does it, every community does it. One community has a mural, every community now has a mural. What we're noticing as we're driving through these small towns is they are all upgrading the look of their small town. They're all using outdoor lights. They're all making their front. So it's one of these things that's not a nice to do now. It is a we gotta do now, to make sure we're just keeping up with everybody else. So that, I want to go and thank you guys for sponsoring the Board 101 training. We had 21 out of 76 board members attend. And then we had about 13 that were not current board members. Our leadership Irwin group came, and a lot of you guys came, so thank you guys. So I want to get with you and with the mayor and with the chairman, and let's talk about next steps. I don't think we're ready for a workshop yet. I think we need to do a little bit more work with those groups. So maybe we three can have a meeting in the next week or so and talk about next steps on that. And then not any movement on the Elwyn Elementary School at this time. A lot of it, I think, is Cardin Summers is in session, so we'll pick up with that discussion when session's over to see where that's moving along. And I think, let's see what else I may have. Oh, we are meeting with Kelly, what's Kelly's last name? Lane, with the Department of Community Affairs on February 26th. Hazel, Dill, and I, to better understand, there are some grants for like buildings over 50 years or low interest loans. And so if the corner building does become a Mexican restaurant, there may be some funds that we can help them get to make the changes, because that building's going to need a lot of work. So we'll be meeting with her to see what other resources are out there for us. And I know, Walter, you sent me some, and that comes under the Department of Community Affairs. So we're going to make sure we know all that. And the final thing I have is, what's the guy from Valdosta and the Rural Prosperity?
Daryl Moore.
Daryl Moore. There is some type of retail strategy conference that he wants to know if we're interested in. I do not know enough about it. I'm going to talk to him as soon as this meeting's over. So, but what it looks like is it's maybe a way to do an inventory of what we have, get the statistics that we need, and that we can then put a real strategy on recruiting what retail we need, and not recruiting more of what we don't need. So I'll just, more to come on that later. I don't have enough details yet to get thoughts or opinions or approval for anything. So I think that's it, unless I missed something. Oh, okay. The best place to put it is between where Fred's was in South Central Primary Care. I'm not sure if RB and you guys have finalized on that being, yeah. So he said it would probably be 2025 before that was even remodeled or whatever. So, we're still on their awareness and their list, but it's probably a 2025 project of getting an EV charger downtown, or chargers.
Who's gonna pay for that?
Georgia Power has a program, and they pay for it. What you do is you give them the land, or don't give it to them, you lease them the use of the land, and then they put it in, and then they take the revenues. And so what we were thinking is, between that building and Fred's, they're gonna if they buy the building, they're gonna tear off that little side piece, and RB said he would actually pave it there, and then they could put the chargers there. And that's the best place, because then people could walk to the coffee shop when it opens, to the restaurants. Deals Ace Hardware was open to it, but it's not the best idea for getting people downtown, so.
One of my 8th graders, I had a laugh, I was teaching yesterday, kid goes, "We have an EV charging station at Bill's."
Oh, yeah, we have a
Yeah,
Tesla.
it's so cute. Because we're studying Martin Luther King and leadership, and then we started talking about things that just no sense of urgency. It's Martin Luther King, one of his biggest things. People had a sense of urgency, and this little kid goes, "We got one of those. It's down at Dill's." I said, "Well, I don't know if it's over 24 hours a day." I thought, it was pretty cool.
No,
The
if
kids thinking, I love it.
if you do have any guests that have Teslas, you can charge it.
Yeah, you can charge it down there. It's just to get it.
Because they can't make it back to Atlanta. We've had guests that had that issue.
Susan, something I'd like to say is, talking about the, farm tour.
Uh-huh.
One of the things I found interesting was some of these towns that have the wine or the olives, people will pay to go there and work.
Oh, yeah.
Just to see, like it's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't know. I know. I've got friends in North Georgia wineries. They'll get volunteers to do the harvest.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the other
80
thing, Susan,
degrees, though.
would you just touch on the project that we did, that we ended up getting the Valdosta students to come in?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the same thing that he's talking about now.
Yeah.
It's another one of those where there were 5 of us, Scott, I think, that went, and it was 3 days of pretty dreamy was thinking, and as a result, we got chosen for a project now.
Yeah, and so the Valdosta State students are going to work with Becky Smith and Luke Roberts with the Recreation Department to try to help put together some plans. They're going to do some surveys in the community of what would be the best programming, and looking at our facilities and how do we work with what we have versus how do we maybe in the future. So it's a student project, so you never know what you get from those. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good, to be honest. The professors came last week and spent some time with Becky and Luke so they could properly brief the students. So we'll have their report in May because it works with their semester. So maybe there'll be some great creative ideas for the Recreation Department from attending. It was the Industrial Development Authority.
Rural development.
The Rural Development Academy, yeah, and so we did that last year, and it really helped actually put a lot of the foundation together for the work we're doing here, of how to make sure we understand what property we have that can be used for industrial. What we run into here is, as we all know, 95% or 80%, somewhere between there, of our property is zoned agriculture. Even though on some of that property right now, there's already commercial activities taking place on those. So we got to look at, making sure we have the right infrastructure in place, that we can handle the water, the sewer, the gas, and then the right layout, the right highways. Because people have built industrial parks and nobody comes, so it's not a build it and they come. You got to have a really good plan together to make it successful. So anyway,
You got to get that first, tenant, right? First guy that has the right business. Who was telling us about that? There's and what's happened is they started a small thing. Now they got a bigger one for you can swap out stuff like an R&L swap out place. And then in front of that, they've already built a strip mall. And it's like happening, unbelievable. And it's in the middle of nowhere.
Wasn't that Russ Bryant?
Yeah,
Okay,
Russ
like
Bryant.
Russ
And it's not exactly in Tipton. It's
No,
like,
it's like this is in Alabama or somewhere like
yeah,
that.
but it's not.
So there are models out there.
There's models. There's ideas that are out there. We just gotta figure out, what fits us. Who's our anchor tenant?
You definitely feel that it's gonna be agriculture centered. I mean, I've been here all my life, and I can't quite remember, but it was the tour that we did in the early fall. We started over here at Hudson Pecan.
Oh,
Then-
yeah. That was
Ended up at
with
Chris's.
that was with the Georgia Ag. You were in China.
Right,
That
I was just
Yeah.
I was just about to say he was in China, and I've met some really great people that I still have a connection with to this very day. And Tyler Harper was there, and it was two things. It was the education and the information that he released. And I mean, I know what happens here. Sometimes you can be so close to the mirror that you either don't really see what's going on or you forget. You become immune to it. And man, by the time we were done, I was like, hey, listen, I'm glad to be from here. Like if I did live here, I wish that I lived here. And I also, the very next day, just kind of toured over in the adjacent county, and what they had was good, but it wasn't as unique as what we had going on in Irwin County. When I understood the numbers and just what you guys are doing out there,
Yeah, that was
like
pretty impressive.
doing numbers
You
like
liked it, good job.
yeah, she did.
It was like sprawl.
Yes.
Yeah, I told Chris he was in China, so Georgianne was in charge.
She
was
charged you,
so-
buddy.
Yeah, she did a
so
great job.
professional
Yeah.
in the way that she gave that history. I would love to see her do that at one of these meetings that we have, just to tell about the history of Paul's.
Yeah.
But she did a
great job.
Let her handle that.
And so did Tyler. Being from him being from Irwin County, just releasing this information, and I was like, man,
Yeah.
like if I didn't live here, I don't want
Want
to
to
live
be here? Yeah.
Well,
So
I
that's why
personally believe
I think the farm tour has some traction. It's going to take a lot of work, but I think it may have some traction.
when we do the spitball and idea thing, that should be, we should allot some time, and we'll bring, people just percolate for the next month on that one thing. It's there. The other thing I think we need this group, everybody in this room, to think about, what I've been told by several different people, one being the head lady of the rec department, is we really don't get the participation that we really should have. Okay, and I don't have an answer yet, because I'm going to go hang out with them to see what's going on, because maybe we don't have enough stuff for the kids to do. I don't know, but
She may have to be a bit more involved in marketing and promoting herself. And then people would
I don't know. I bet word of mouth is the best thing going.
Yeah.
Andy done a really good job back during basketball season to get our numbers up tremendously. Doing the things that he done made a huge difference in our sign up. Real quick, two things. One is the Carl Vinson Institute of Government, which Miss Sarah Lynn that came in, that's who she works for. They do a lot of our training classes for different things, whether it be the city, the county, Industrial Development Authority. They have an economic development training course that is for development authorities. So if you're on the authority, and I handed Kendall one before he left, but if you're on the authority and you have not taken this is something that you need to sign up for, and you can get with Tammy. You've got a flyer here you can take with you to see the information on it. There's a chance to go and do it in person in Dublin, or you can do it virtually. I've done both. I hate to take the expense and the time to go somewhere else and do it, but the people you wind up sitting next to becomes very valuable sometimes. The relationships that you make at some of these meetings are invaluable. So if you're able to go, I would recommend that you actually go and attend in person. If you can't, please sign up for the virtual one and take that. It'll explain to you more of what our responsibilities are and what's expected of us, and also how to keep us legal. So everybody needs to take that. One other thing, this development authority as well as the hospital authority sponsored part of the legislative reception up in Atlanta. They have Eggs and Issues every year, which kind of kicks off the legislative session. And last year, Douglas Coffee County put together an event, had a lot of legislators there, and it was a really big success. This year, they asked us if we would participate. Also had Waycross and Ware County participate. Had a really good showing. The mayor was there. Chris and I were there. And I'm pretty certain we'll see some new legislation that will drastically affect the hospital that came out of that meeting. And the relationships that were made out of during that meeting and the conversations that were had. Looking at what was done last year, if we can get the hospital written back into that program through legislation, last year it had a $2.5 million impact, positive impact on our hospital. So that was a great investment from that standpoint. So thank y'all for being willing to sponsor that event, so that we could participate in it. So other than that, that's all we have. Sure.
I want to take you on a little journey with me just a minute. Susan had the training set up on the 17th, so I figured as the chair of the chamber that I should know everything there is to know about the chamber, the bylaws, how the bylaws work, and where we fall into the picture. And when I started researching, I started out with our bylaws, of course. So I'm reading through our bylaws, and it says in our bylaws that a representative from the chamber would be at the industrial court that own.
This is at. It did say own, but it got changed to at.
It got owned and it got changed to at. And so what we have is our bylaws tell me this. So I said, well, let me clear this up. So then I went to the industrial authority bylaws. Well, I opened the industrial authority bylaws, and which I think probably need to be updated, because the first thing on the first page of section 3, it says that the chamber has 2 members. This is before it was changed. Now it was changed in 2016. Y'all, this ain't got nothing to do with nobody.
Right.
Yeah, I think Randy was around at that point. But what that does, anyway, so in 2016 and 15, something went on. I don't know what went on. I'm not going back into the history because that's not important right now. What's important is that we may be able to fix this a little bit. Not to say there's a big problem. But in 2016, they wrote the chamber board completely out of the industrial authority vote. Therefore, the Chamber of Commerce did not have a vote nor motion-making abilities on the chamber. Now, the reason for that were a couple of reasons, but one, we had direct money involved in membership, and I think that the reason they built it like they did is to keep it from becoming a problem in the future. And I kind of see why they did it, but where that leaves us at this point is we're sitting out here at the chamber, and you guys expect us to be your front man, and we have a big contract to work, and we don't even have a vote on the industrial authority board at all. We don't have any say on the industrial authority board. If you look at the new bylaws, the mention of Birmingham County Chamber of Commerce is not in the bylaws at all. No. And so what I'm really asking for here today, I know that we're late on nominations this year, but I know next year we're going to have to do this again. And what I would like you all to do is think about the next time we put somebody on. And bylaw changes may have to come. Active bylaws change, and good bylaws change. So possibly that, but at least the next time, the next time you guys look at an at-large candidate or an at-large person for this committee to please consider the chair of the chamber, which is me right now, but it will also be a chamber place where when I go out as chamber, I can either nominate somebody or appoint somebody to be there, but I just feel that we're so close with all the businesses going down and the responsibilities that you all have handed us. You know, I just feel that we should have somebody on this board that can have motion-making abilities and at least one vote. And so the next time you guys start choosing, I appreciate it if you all would look at the Chamber of Commerce for that spot to represent the people of Osceola. It's already a vetted spot. You've had people that's been elected by your business members, and then probably will be a member of the executive board, either the chair or vice chair or somebody that's been vetted again through election. So it promises probably to be a pretty good person with pretty good business sense that gets put on there. There's always a possibility you have somebody crazy like me come through there and put him on there. But as a matter of fact, I just think that I feel that it's important for us to have a little bit of a say-so in what's going down. That's all.
Well, I just like to say this, because maybe it's worth having a little bit of a session on this to talk about, because my history with the Chamber and Industrial Authority, which goes back to like the 70s, is that the Chamber and the Industrial Authority worked hand in hand, and in fact the Chamber was an arm of, I mean, it was just the same, not the same, but it worked together in economic development. And the employees, Hazel, part of that, she was a key figure, and then the chairman of the chamber was a member of the Industrial Authority. Somewhere I missed it, where I was on the chamber, I guess I was on the industrial, I was on the Industrial Authority because of the chamber, but then all of a sudden I got appointed by the Industrial Authority. So there was legislation that took place back then that, not that it was important, because I could miss things, but it was all of a sudden passed before I even knew it, and I was right here serving, never understood. I don't know how much discussion or the meeting I missed. So I don't know.
We know, Randy, originally, when the Industrial Authority was first started, it was 2 from the chamber, and the mayor and the county commissioner, and there were 6.
And the chair.
Well, in 2016 is when Matt, and part of it had to do with legal issues, if you remember, went and had it changed. I questioned that a few years ago because I didn't know that it had been voted on. And the way it was presented on the ballot, you did not know what you were voting for. I went and got a copy of it. And the average person that went up there and made a vote didn't know what they were voting for. So, but that's when it got changed.
Right. So anyway, there needs to be, and whether it happens or not, I think it's important for Osceola Erwin County to have its chamber, and the Industrial Authority has allowed somebody to be appointed to put on the Industrial Authority.
Yeah, it was.
But before it was earmarked that the chamber chairman would be on there. So
Well, we talked about it last year when I was the president about possibly serving on it. I prefer to have somebody new in that, because I'm going to come to every meeting as long as I'm involved. I'm going to come and be a part of it. So I'd rather see somebody like Kendall or some of these young people get involved with us. And I always felt like with Randy, we did have a vote because he was on the chamber board.
Yeah,
The only
'cause, I mean,
problem I've got is that years ago, I remember the Industrial Authority, before I was on it, was basically funding the chamber.
Exactly. They paid the
100%.
salary.
100%. Now currently, we're paying $50,000. So if we're gonna go there, and I think there's legal issues, but I think DDA, if we're funding them, so that they need a place on the board also. You know, I think you get into some legal issues. Now, if the chamber is completely self-sufficient, raising their own money, I don't have a problem. But I think we need to consult an attorney or someone to make sure we're paying taxpayer dollars to the chamber to exist right now. And so I'm not sure, and I'm not against it. I'm just saying, I don't want to do anything with taxpayer funds that's not legal.
We don't wanna do anything wrong either, Walt, not
But you
whatsoever.
got an agreement that says how much and you're getting a service. And
Well, and
you gotta-
speaking of the contract though, Andy and I were talking, I think we need to relook at that contract between the chamber and the industrial authority, because I know we've worked through it over the last, ever since I came on, there's been discussion about the contract, what they're doing, and they're not doing what the contract calls for. So either technically the industrial authority maybe shouldn't be paying, or we need to do a new revised contract.
I think that we should be doing I think we should
I mean, you're
redo
doing
the
a great
contract.
job,
We
right.
should do the contract.
I
I
think
mean,
the
there's just
contract
so much stuff. If you really read that contract,
Yeah.
there's 2 more people's worth of work.
Yeah,
just
it
on the
needs,
contract.
I think,
It's
I'm not on the
really
authority, but I really think it should be looked at on revising the contract.
But anyway,
Was it an annual? Yeah.
That's what I was asking Andy,
Year,
when does
calendar
it,
year?
when's that
Look it
contract?
up.
yeah, I don't know, but as
We
soon
need
as
to
this
look at
meeting's over, I'll know in just a little
Yeah.
while.
I mean, it's an annual contract.
You can revise
That's what I
anything.
thought.
Yeah, so did it
Calendar
expire
It was
in,
supposed to be, but I think the last time, Tammy, that it was done was when Horace was mayor.
yeah, I don't think it's on the annual.
So that was been, what, 2
It's
Anyway,
supposed to
years
be-
ago?
it's
Yeah,
supposed to
so it
be-
needs to be looked at. It should be looked at for sure.
Scott, this is off, but do you still have her screen at your office?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
it's probably in the corner. Brandon put it there. All right, is that all? If that's the case, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Is that okay? I wasn't sure. Okay, most of you know, I've got one more meeting to go to today, and then found out we got a couple more next week, I guess, or the following week. So I don't, if you're involved, I'm just gonna say this, if you're involved with solar and you don't feel like you need to be in this, that's fine. Solar is what has prompted me to come to all of these meetings. I just want you to know, because what it's done is it's figuring out how our county works. Just like the Industrial Authority Board. How does this work and what role does it play, not only with solar, but with the rest of our businesses? So, here's my thing. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm kind of getting little bits and pieces, but how does the Industrial Authority Board, do y'all have a application? This is going to tie up an application, bonds, I guess pilot. I don't understand exactly how all of this is supposed to come into play, whether it's solar or whether it's another business that wants to come in their own county. So what is y'all's process for that?
You mean like a business to come in?
A business to come in? I'm kind of looking at solar as a business, I guess. I don't really know, but what are the steps there for the Industrial Authority Board, and what role do y'all play in that decision? Whether it's business, and how does that work?
Well, a lot of it depends on what it is that they're asking.
Yeah, Hazel, you're not on the board,
Yeah.
we should let the
Yeah.
board answer that.
Yeah.
It all depends on what it is that's
You've been
coming
here for a
in.
long time, so you know.
Well, I can go, I know it's all about solar, and I'll talk about solar.
But not all of it is. I want you to understand that.
It is
Not all
mostly
of it
about
is.
solar, but let's talk about solar. I don't have a dog in this fight, but the way I see it is a company will come into the industrial authority typically, like
Mm-hmm.
solar, John's Enterprise, fencing company, whatever. They'll come in and say, hey, we would like to get a tax abatement or some incentive to come into your county. And then it would be up to the industrial authority to say, well, we don't have the money, because we are, I think we get a couple of, maybe 150,000 a year or something.
200 a year.
Yeah, about 200 a year. And so we can't give a lot of money. We can say, okay, we'll give you a tax abatement on equipment for so many years, or we'll give you we won't tax your product or whatever. So that would be where I think the industrial authority would come in on solar. If the solar company came to the industrial authority and said, we want a tax abatement for 3 years, Well, I would be against that because their equipment is really the only thing we got to tax, the way I see it. And I don't know all the ins and outs of solar because I hadn't kept up with it as much as you have, probably. Or
No, I really hadn't. Now, let me tell you,
but I'm
it
just
is
saying,
a learning
but that's
curve.
how, I think that's how it works, is that they would come to the industrial authority and ask for a tax abatement or some type of tax incentive to come into Irwin County. And then it would be up to the industrial authority to either vote yes, I'm only one vote, Randy's one vote, or whoever's on the industrial authority, and if it passed, then we would either use the monies that we have, or we would give them a future tax abatement for whatever. But that's kind of how it works, whether it's solar, whether it's Fenton Company, or whether it's John Blow.
Okay, so if a company came in and didn't want a tax abatement, is there a process that they go through for this
At that
industrial
point, they
board?
don't have to have any involvement whatsoever with the industrial authority.
Because then
The
it's
only time
considered
they're-
private.
The industrial authority
Well,
was
I've used this
designed
as
to
an
provide,
example.
to
Is that
incentivize
okay?
business to locate in this community. If you read the bylaws, that's what the development authority was intended to do, is incentivize business. Just as, like I told you,
Yeah,
whenever
that's
we
right.
talked to y'all, and this is something kind of separate from the development authority because there was a joint development authority created that created the tech park over next to East Central Tech with Wiregrass.
Wiregrass. Don't worry,
So,
I say every
yeah,
name under the
it's
sun.
still East Central sometimes it's Wiregrass, but anyhow, that park was developed through a joint relationship, Irwin and Osceola, Ben Hill and Fitzgerald. So there's a separate board for that has representatives from both communities that come together and make those decisions. Granted, there's really been no decisions made for years. So whenever we were talking to y'all about your expansion, that's when I contacted them because currently we don't have any land. The Irwin County Industrial Authority, Irwin Osceola Industrial Authority does not currently have land that we could offer to somebody to incentivize them to come here.
Which is
That's
kind
one
of
the
what
things
the
that we've
Georgia
been
Power
discussing.
thing is trying to figure out where something could go.
That's exactly
Okay.
what it's for, is to help us, it's to provide a rating on different pieces of property around the community and tell us what is our best option. Same thing with, I know you've asked about Project Vision before. There again, that was kind of a community steering committee to say, okay, this is the direction that our community would like for us to go. And based off of that, if you would like for us to go into something, say value-added farming, maybe we need to be further out into the community. Maybe we don't need to be right up next to the city. If you want us to build some type of warehousing, maybe we do need to be in a certain location. So that's what it was all designed around, was to try to give us direction to go into. But the industrial authority is there to incentivize industry to come into Irwin County or to promote the growth of industry that is already in Irwin County, and that was the case with y'all. You're already here, and if in any economic development courses you go to, they'll tell you that 80% of your growth is going to come from within. So hoping that you bring somebody in from the outside and hit that home run very seldom happens. The local businesses are the base hits. You help those grow. Well, that's why we offered what was suggested by Jason Dunn, who kind of oversees that Joint Development Authority. He's the economic development person for Ben Hill County, was to basically deed the land over to y'all at no charge to help you make that expansion.
Right.
So that's what it's here for.
I think it was kind of said, but I think in all because I went back and talked with Aaron, because Aaron came up and talked, and he pretty much had conversations, there was kind of that, but kind of not at the same time. I think in the very initial stages, if I recall correctly. And Chris, you're going to have to help remind me. But first off, it looked like us purchase and do all that. I mean, and that's fine because we're still a private business. We were just trying to figure out how it worked up here. You know, what we thought we knew of we didn't.
But, and
so
we were-
it's
we
just
were
a lot of
looking- We were looking
questions.
to expand and we wanted to know what was available
Right,
for
what
us
you
before
have
we
to
made
be
the
able
decision
to
to pay for it
expand.
ourselves or what.
And there's
what was
different
available.
options, so right
And we're
now,
not
we
saying
don't currently
for-
have any property.
A handout, that wasn't
Right.
it. I mean, we were just, we
Well,
thought
no,
that
it's-
there were low
Well, no,
things
and then,
that we
like,
could do.
yeah, and the industrial authority can
community
help,
would help.
maybe, like, you want to expand and stuff, like, we've worked with, Code Red Guard, and that he wants to, he has the tools to help with school safety, lock down the schools, stuff like that. So, you know, he's like, hey, I need help, I need to grow. So we searched around and we found him some marketing support with the Georgia Rural Prosperity Center, right? So the industrial authority didn't do the funds, didn't give a tax abatement or anything, but used us as a resource to go help them try to find something to help them meet their goals.
So why would an industrial authority, okay, let me back up. I'll use us as an example. Not that we've done this and we didn't do, but if we were to come to y'all and say, okay, we would like to have some type of tax break, I guess, on whatever. Is this where we would come?
Yes.
Okay.
The
Is there
county and city do not have the authority to do that. The industrial authority is in a unique position because of law, best I understand. And I'd rather an attorney answer that question, to be honest, but there's some way that an industrial authority has the ability to do that where the other entities do not. So whether it be through incentives by doing tax incentives, or we do have money that we can loan out through what's called a revolving loan fund. There's different things, and listen, before I took office, I had no idea any of this stuff was even available. I had never heard of anything where the community would help me grow my business. So I knew nothing of it whatsoever. Matt actually asked me to go out and speak to y'all, and that was because I had started learning some of those things, some things that could be done. Whether it was, hey, we need to, or take Code Red, he needed to invest in a $150,000 piece of equipment. And right now, interest rates are extremely high. Can we loan him money out of what we have to help him grow? Now, he has to pay it back, and he has to pay back interest. But can we do it at a better rate than what he can on the free market? Or in the case of Forest River was looking at, okay, we can expand here, or we can start pushing business back up to Elkhart, Indiana, which will actually cost us jobs. So we had an attorney write up a contract that basically says, we'll sell you this piece of property at a discounted price as long as you show that you're creating a certain amount of jobs. So, and if you don't create those jobs, then there's clawbacks in that contract to where you basically don't get that discount or don't get as much discount depending on how many jobs you created. So there's all different ways that can be structured. It may just be financial investment. So if y'all wanted to, I don't know, maybe you had some really big machinery that had a large value. So there's a tax incentive for the community for you to bring that equipment in here because you're going to be paying taxes on it. Maybe there's an incentive to help you because of that reason. Or maybe there's an incentive to help because you're going to create 25 jobs. So all situations are different.
So is there, as a business, would you submit an application?
You would basically show up, from my understanding, you show up to one of these meetings and talk to us, and at that point, we
Starts with a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with a conversation more than anything.
You know, I'll just say this. We showed up here 20 years ago. We had 12 jobs out at that farm. It was the largest event company in the world. We were shipping stuff to 200 countries under the radar. No one ever gave us a dime. The average salary was over $50,000 a year, right? And no one. And when it was time, I asked Tyler Harper. I said, you know, we're going to sell the business. I'm getting older, and we never could get. My fault. I didn't know this existed. That's a crying shame that warehouse isn't still going full speed ahead. It was just like, boop, the company from France came in. A couple of our guys that worked in Atlanta, everybody go, oh no, we don't want to live in Osier. No one wanted to live here. The big shots. So boom, off it went. That's what this place is for. Really, is like
To help keep it.
help people figure out keeping the jobs, right? And then figuring out the problem we got. I've talked to several companies in the last 6 months. One of them, remember the sand guy? Like a dummy, I went down and talked to the big sand place to get him the sand. And I think the guy, his place is over in Tiffany. I think he stole business from us. The guy hasn't moved here yet, to my knowledge, right? He's from Indiana. But this guy bags sand and sells it in Florida. And there's so much sand in Irwin County, but there's no sand, what do you call it, a factory like the guy over in Tifton. He's got a big operation in South Georgia. They make cement. So we lost out on that one. There's several other people we've talked to that have told me, like, hey, we're not ready yet. We might have poked a giant, though. I don't know the latest on something, but there might be a company doing one of our ideas. It's all, no one knows. I don't know anything about it. I just heard a rumor about it. But, you've got to keep poking, but like Scott said, that's the home run. We got to figure out who's here and how do we help it grow.
And you can
Right,
look
what
on, you
makes
can
it
look on the
happen?
balance
How do
sheet,
you-
because it's, it's public knowledge. I mean, it's taxpayer money. You can see where the industrial authority has helped, where the revolving loan fund has helped. I mean, we've got a list of people, like Piggly Wiggly.
Well,
I
that's
was
what
gonna
I'm
say, you
saying.
just
See,
pointed
I
that.
had no idea. And that, I mean, you can, and
But it's
I'll
not,
say
it's
solar,
not huge amounts of money.
but the whole point is that's what's got, I know me, and bless Chris's heart, I've drug him to stuff, and he's like, Suzanne, I got a business to run. I said, but I need your set of ears, hon. But to understand kind of how different parts, and that's why I was extremely disappointed that meeting got canceled for that Saturday where all the boards would come in, because I thought, well, now, actually, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and.
Because then you could,
yeah.
everybody, it's all kind of in one spot. Everybody could kind of understand how it works
Yep.
in different areas of our county.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So what I want to do though, I think if we had that meeting now, because of the turnout we had at this one, it wouldn't be as productive.
Not enough people showed up.
So we've got to, with the mayor and the chairman, we've got to get a strategy together to make sure we've got all the groups properly engaged and then have that. Because I agree with
Well,
you. I
it's
think
kind
we
of
need-
all spread out, is what I
Education
have
and
found.
information. You're
I mean,
right.
it's
It is
everywhere.
everywhere. And we got to make sure they're all working together. You're right? That we're all working toward the same thing.
Right, and how do you work
And
together?
how do you work together?
And that's kind of where I've been with this, and I'll say it again. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, solar is what
Right.
piqued my interest with it. Otherwise, I'll be honest with you, I'd still be out there mowing.
And you were expressing exactly what our politicians have said for years. Y'all have a plan. Y'all don't work together. You don't know what this guy's doing or this guy's doing. And that was the point of progress forward, or whatever you want to call it, was to try to start getting some of these people together, because there's no plan. Just like what you said, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
I didn't know what's going on. I mean, so that's what, to get everybody to start to come together and say, okay, here's, this is what the industrial authority does, this is what the council does, so that's you're a good example of what most people, our politicians over the years. I had two politicians that are local, and they said, well, Irwin County would come, but they never had a plan. How can we give them money and you ain't got a plan? When's the last time you went to the bank and said, hey, I want to borrow $10,000 and you don't have any kind of plan?
Yeah. Well, another thing, and it's how does the Industrial Authority Board, if somebody, how do you give them money? I mean, I know you said a low interest loan, but are there other ways? And I guess it's just kind of you're digging, the more you dig in, of course, the more questions you have, because sometimes it can get a little complicated, and sometimes it really is as simple as what it seems.
It's complicated when you're sitting in these seats, much less when you're sitting out there, because like I said, I had no idea before I took office as to what was available. As a small business owner myself, I never once thought about, granted my business was in Ben Hill County, I've done a lot of business here, but I never once thought about going to the chamber or the industrial, I didn't know there was a such thing as an industrial authority or economic development authority. They call them different things in different communities. I never knew I could go to them and ask for any kind of help of any kind, whether it be some type of abatement because we were creating jobs, or some type of tax incentive because we were bringing in equipment or a loan so that we would bring in more equipment or jobs. Had no idea. That was really and truly a lot of the purpose behind Project Vision, was to get the community to buy in and start to get them educated on what is currently available here, and also where do you want us to go? Because this board sat around and we would meet once a month, just like we have now. We'd have our little rah-rah session and say, okay, this is what we think we need to do. And then we left and we come back the next month and said, okay, this is what we need to do. And we left and come back, and nothing ever happened. And it was because, one, you did not have a plan. Two, you did not have community buy-in. So that was what Project Vision was centered around. Get us a plan together that the community, what does the community want to see us do going forward? And get us moving. Let's actually take some action. We didn't want to go out and buy a piece of property and say, okay, we're going to develop an industrial park, and then realize, okay, nobody's coming because we don't have housing. So, I mean, a house goes up for sale on Facebook the other day and sold within 30 minutes. Right. We don't have real estate available for employees. You know, if we brought in a factory that employed 200 people, where are they going to live? Granted, you may be able to bring some people that are currently live here and are working in Tifton or Fitzgerald or wherever that would come back here to work, and we've done a study to find out about that too. Georgia Power provides a lot of really useful information, and they showed us where we have, what was it, over 2,000 people
2,600
that
people
leave here every day and go somewhere else to work. So maybe we don't need housing. Maybe we just need better job opportunities in Irwin County so that people that are currently working outside the county line but live here will work here. And if they work here and don't go to Tifton to work, maybe they buy groceries at this Piggly Wiggly versus Publix because they're already here. Versus my wife, for instance, was working in Tift County, so that's where she bought gas or bought groceries or whatever the case may be. So that's the sort of stuff that this board is supposed to be centered around. Mr. Mayor?
I have several things to ask, and they're kind of all over the board. I'm like most of the civilians here. I've never been to an industrial authority meeting. So, Ms. Driscoll, you have a contract with the industrial authority.
Mm-hmm.
When was that signed?
That was, we're in our second, Siri, we didn't ask you. We're in our, we did a first 6 months, and we're in our second 6 months, and we signed that one in December. So it would have been May of last year.
And when will that contract expire?
We do it 6 months at a time.
Okay. Do you mind telling us how much you were being paid?
$3,600 a month now.
Thank you. Next question I've got.
And part of that is.
Yeah, 600 goes to Hazel as her assistant.
Okay. Thank you. In your project vision, okay, I don't exactly know what your project vision is. I've heard a lot about it. Is it funded by any kind of grant or
No,
by the Department of
no, it is all
Community Affairs?
volunteer work. All volunteer. I started that at the request of the Industrial Development Authority back in 2022, and we worked all 2022 as volunteer, and early 2023 as volunteer. So absolutely no funding whatsoever.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
To that point, the reason Susan was brought on at the point that she was, it was all volunteer whenever she was doing Project Vision. At the end of Project Vision, this board looked at what plan we came up with, or that was developed by the community, and said, okay, who pushes this forward? Because just like I said earlier, we come in and meet once a month, and then we go back to our normal lives, and nothing happens during that 30 days. And we come back, we meet again, and say, well, where have we gotten? Nowhere. Because we don't have a person. You go to these economic development conferences, almost every single community has an economic development person that works on these tasks. So this board would get together and basically give them their marching orders. Go do this. This is what direction we want you to take. We didn't have anybody. And I asked several people in economic development, what do you suggest we do? I mean, should we hire somebody? And I was told by multiple different people that work in economic development, no, you're not ready. You don't have a product to sell. You don't have an industrial park. You don't have a spec building of any kind. You don't have anything for them to offer, so you're going to bring them in and expect unrealistic expectations out of them. They're going to get stale. You're going to wind up firing them, and now all you've done is create a worse situation. Okay, so what do? Somebody needs to pick up the torch and move with it, and I think everybody here probably has a job, something they need to be doing. I have plenty that I need to be doing for the county. I mean, I go to a lot of these conferences and try to educate myself as well as I can, but I can't do that as well. So we asked Susan at that point, listen, you have experience in this, you have contacts that none of us have. Would you be willing to do it? And at that point, you came up with a contract and said, okay, for this amount, this is what I'll do for you. And at any given time, if you say you don't want me to continue, I'll walk away. That's fine. So
And
that's
I'll go back one more thing, go even further back.
Okay.
I contacted Susan because I had contacted a couple of politicians. And they said, Irwin County never comes up with a plan. They never do anything. They never have anything. So I said, well, I'm not smart enough to do that. But I knew Susan and Dale had been very successful in forming some really great companies. And I said, well, you know, I learned in business and federal contract, you always deal with people that's done that before. You do that with the railroad. You do that. So you go find somebody that's been in the railroad business. Well, and I contacted Susan, and first, a little hesitant, said, well, I don't know, you know, this was before solar, before anybody ever even thought about the industrial authority. And I said, would you please just look at it? And she did, and she was very gracious, has done an excellent job. We're probably further ahead with our planning than we've ever been.
Right. I understand all that, and I'll tell you, Susan, Irwin County does need cleaning up a lot. I applaud what you're doing here in Ocilla, and of course we differ on some things, obviously. Everybody in this room has different opinions of different things, and everybody, and certainly I respect other people's right to their opinion. I have a little, I cannot articulate it, but I have a little problem is, if we're going to be a Georgia agritourism community, we're taking farmland out of production and putting solar panels, and you know, that's business. I understand that. Everybody's got a right to a profit. I'm not begrudging anyone for that, because that's what American capitalism is based on, and that's our society. The other thing I want to get on to is, Walter, there's a very lot wrong with the idea of dredging the Lappahaw River. I'm not.
Well, first, let me stop you.
Yeah.
This was a group. If I said, okay, everybody throw me some ideas, do you think we'd come up with different ideas? And maybe some, and listen, and have a group that says, okay, crazy ideas. Let's have crazy ideas. Well, somebody said, hey, dredge the Lappahaw River. Do you think the EPA or anybody else is going to let us do that now?
I hope not.
I mean, would you even consider, do you even think, but would you tell Carl, that's a crazy idea, don't bring that up again? No, we're in a group and you're just throwing out ideas. I think there's somebody that said maybe build a dome over our football field.
Well, and Walter, I want to go back to that too. There were public sessions through the comprehensive plan.
Sure.
And so, and as you've seen, the Industrial Authority, we're focusing on industry, current and new. We're focusing on housing, and we're focusing on what is our unique proposition. So when we were in those meetings talking about housing, people were going, maybe we could build some housing. We've got rivers. There's other communities that have built active lifestyle housing where you get young and old people living together, and they can like canoe on the river. They can hike. They can do things. I don't know where the word dredging came up from the discussion to the report, because that word was never mentioned. It was like, maybe we clean up some of the rivers so people can get to them and access. So again, things are taken out of context.
Well,
so
let me say this. I'm very familiar with very thick railroad contracts. Every word in a contract, and I don't know if you call a comprehensive plan a contract or not. I'm not familiar enough to know about that. And of course, you deal with contracts all the time in your line of work. there's not a word in there that a lawyer has not approved. And there's not a word in there that they don't think about doing at some point in time.
Well, that's not true on the comprehensive plan. It's not a contract. And what the public saw was a draft. That's why they had the public hearing, to make sure there weren't words in there like that.
Also,
So-
this-
And then you turn it over, then you turn
Yeah,
it,
because it was
you can't
coming
go
when I
to an
heard
attorney
drafting, I'm
without
like,
a
that
plan.
never.
Well,
Right?
it's
Do
28
you agree with that? The
versus
railroad
2.
don't just say, hey, I'm gonna do that. They have a plan. Then they can attack the attorney, because attorney's gonna charge you.
Okay, I understand that. One
Well,
other
there's
question
gotta
for
be
you,
some
Walter,
rational-
and one other question for you, Walter, and this is not an attack on you
I
at all.
understand.
Would you recuse yourself from discussing any solar and voting on anything to do with solar if there was a property next to your property that has a solar contract?
If I had, and I had Georgia Power to come through our property, you know, back when they built these big power lines, and of course we sued Georgia Power, I think it would be a good thing. I don't think legally, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, first of all. I've watched my cousin Vinny several times. But I think you know, it's up to your integrity, whether you want to. If I'm going to directly receive funds, I don't think I should vote on that, period. But now that's just Walter Hudson. But if an attorney might say, well, no, it'd be illegal for you to vote if you were actually going to get funds. So you'd have to ask the attorney. Legally, I don't know. My opinion is if I'm going to get funds from whether it's hog farming, chicken farming, solar panels, whatever, then, or Georgia Power lines coming through my property, I don't think I should vote on that particular thing to get funds from me.
Okay.
That's my opinion now. That's no legal opinion, and you can quote me on that.
I'm glad to hear you say that. One thing I want to move on next to,
But that don't mean I'm going to tell Randy Crenshaw what he can do.
I understand.
Andy Paul what he can do.
absolutely, I understand. Now, I want to move on to something. These are deeds in Brooks County, Georgia, that Boulevard Associates has built, what is it, 3,000 acres of solar down there? Not exactly sure. But this is all on 812 acres of solar. This is only on one particular property down there. They are much further along in solar than we are. They have an operating solar project down there. The first one is a limited warranty deed from Quitman Solar, because Quitman Solar bought the property from a private individual, who I won't name for privacy reasons. And then they gave that property to Brooks County Development Authority. Does anyone here realize that's what they want to do?
I hadn't heard him say anything like that.
Okay. Now, then there's a short form lease.
Do they do that everywhere? Is that just Brooks County, or is that Berrien County, or is that Tifton, Fitzgerald?
I could not tell you that, Walter.
Well,
I don't do it all the time either.
I understand.
I wanted to insert here, this might be a place to do that, when Irwin built and we decided to put it in Ben Hill County because of the substation, we got no tax. And said they were wanting to, they helped us find the property. Probably had to do over, we probably wouldn't do a small project like that, but we did. But there was a zero. In fact, it probably cost us more in tax money than we thought at the end of the day. And that's probably driving our price higher than we want it to be, because we thought they might be a little bit of at least abatement for a few years. But I don't know about other projects, but I just know that's not a typical thing.
Thank you. The
On
next,
our part.
thank you. The next one is short form lease agreement. There's a lot of good information there. Then the next one, these are all chronologically, is an option agreement between the Brooks County Development Authority, which I assume that'd be you guys here, and Quitman Solar. What's interesting about this one is, page 2 and 1A, they talk about a bond a little bit, and we're talking about an 812 acre project, and the bond is for $190 million. Okay?
Well, I tell you, from Irving County, I don't think I'm gonna vote for $190 million bond now. I mean, I don't know who voted for that one, but somebody might take a look at that.
That's my question, y'all, and I want y'all to hire a non-solar attorney when it's not on retainer by solar. I want y'all to get this thing right and get it right one time.
We don't even know if they're gonna come to the industrial authority.
They are. Right now, the deed to secured debt. Everybody in this room knows what a deed to secured debt is. Now, this deed to secured debt, what's interesting about it, is also on page 2. And it talks about the project and the bond. And it's actually, the grantor is issuing its taxable industrial development revenue bond, Whitman Solar LLC project, Series 2019, the bond, for $190 million on a drawdown obligation. I don't have a clue what a drawdown obligation is. I have a hint, but I don't know. And I don't know if y'all don't know, but y'all need to find that out before you put your John Henrys on it. Then there's a UCC financing statement. The debtor's name is the Brooks County Development Authority, which means that's going to be the Irving County citizens are going to be the debtors. Whitman Solar is the secured party. It says the same thing again here.
Have they ever done that in other counties though, Dan? I mean, is that just the first thing and they just didn't know any better? I mean, I don't even think that makes sense to do.
You can ask folks in Brooks County why they did it.
Well, I know, but I'm saying, is that the only county that did that?
I can't tell you, Walter, but these solar companies is the same solar companies in many, many other locations. They have a well-oiled financial, legal department. I suspect it's the same everywhere. But now, you know, you can ask the county attorney to investigate this and see. I don't know. But I'm just trying to give y'all an idea what y'all may be asked to sign.
Oh, that's all.
And before you sign it, I want you as individuals to know exactly what we're signing here. And then there's one last one, Whitman Solar, Delaware Limited Liability Company grantor, Brooks County Development Authority, and U.S. Bank National Association as collateral agent for secured parties. Jimmy might know something about that. And it's a deed secured debt, assignment of leases and rents, security agreement, fixture filing, leasehold and easement. And it's for $209 million. Keep in mind, we're only talking about 812 acre project. And that's smaller than our total aggregate of projects we're talking about right now. This was dated in December 2019, and maturity date is December 31st, 2049. That's 30 years. And then one last one, a consent to collateral assignment agreement. It's also for $190 million bond. I don't even understand that one. I can't even get beyond the first paragraph on these things. And I've been reading these for quite a long time. I read them when you had to go down to the courthouse and dig them out by paper. So I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of imagination, but I can run a title search. But I don't like to do abstracts. There's way too much involved in abstract. So my plea to y'all is, get this thing right one time. Get it right where the citizens of Irving County are not going to be financially strapped 30 years down the road with this thing. Because these LLCs, these are all Delaware LLCs. For people in here that do not know, Delaware LLCs are in Delaware for a reason. And if you don't believe me, Google why is Delaware such a good state to do business in. You might be shocked. And it's different from a LLC in Georgia. And they in Delaware, they allow a master LLC, and that master LLC can have from 1 to thousands of LLC working under it. And each one is a standalone business. When they dissolve an LLC, you can't sue it. It's gone. It does not exist. Most people in here understand that LLC is not a corporation. It's not even a company. It's a partnership. It's a business entity. That's how the IRS treats them. And in Delaware, people with a smartphone in here, and I had to work a little better than I do, right here in Osceola, Georgia, you can go to Delaware on your smartphone, create a business, LLC, in less than 15 minutes, pay the fee, which is a small fee, and you have an LLC. You do not have to live in Delaware. You don't have to do business in Delaware. And of course, no LLC pays federal income tax, and in Delaware they only pay state income tax. It passes through to the membership. And the membership can be one single member, or it can be thousands, or it can be hundreds of LLCs on that LLC. You're nodding. So, y'all be very careful with these LLCs. I'm just practically begging. I'm not going to live to see the end of these projects. I'm 73 years old. I hope I got many more years, but who knows? But I know I'm not going to live to 2049. I'll be 98 years old.
Might.
I
The
might.
step is getting there.
We're pulling for you now.
I don't want to spend the last 20 years of my life in a nursing home looking straight at the ceiling.
That's true.
But
You know, Dan, it sounds to me like, I don't know, and I ain't a smart guy, but that sounds like somebody was drinking when he signed that, cause I don't think anybody around this table, I don't think anybody in that crowd would even think about signing something as crazy as that. I mean, I really don't, and I just wonder if that's, I just wonder, and I wish you'd went to another county or two and looked at it. I just wonder if Brooks County, that was the first thing, and they thought it was a good idea, and it was gonna make all these $1 million, or what, and, you know, cause always snake oil can be sold.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So,
Well,
but that's what I'm saying. I think what you're just asking us is take a look at whatever.
and
And does it really go into an industrial authority?
well, here's the thing.
Well, for
Let
abatement
me,
of taxes.
let me explain something, Walter. Each one of these sheets of paper cost me 50 cents. Every one of them. That's what it cost me.
Well, you retired. You can afford that.
And railroad men have plenty of money. I already have over $300 worth of printer ink in this project. I'm not counting my gas when I went to Worth County and talked to the zoning administrator, or I went to Brooks County.
Did they do any of that at Worth County?
I didn't ask them.
Oh.
At the time, I didn't know about these things.
Okay.
I went to Brooks County. At the time, I didn't know about that either. Talked to the zoning administrator down there. Got a lot of good information. The some of it made it to this ordinance.
They
Most
just
of
done
it
a
did
big
not.
one over Lee County. You might want to call them and see what they're doing, because I know I talked with Eddie Meeks, and we were just having a conversation, not about solar, but then he said there was a guy that had just signed or had just sold his property or even leased his property. Why don't you call them and see what they did?
Well,
if the industrial authority even done anything.
I don't mind doing that, but let me tell you, I'm not on this industrial authority board. Y'all are not going to listen to what I say, because I am a layperson, and y'all are the ones that have got to decide. No matter what I put in front of you, y'all have got to decide. Y'all need to be doing an investigation. Y'all have a county attorney that can do it. Y'all have, what's the lawyers in Tiffany? Y'all have ability and funds to do this thing and do it right for Irving County, because I'm just a citizen. And I know a lot of times y'all don't listen to me. Sometimes you do. I understand that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just appreciate y'all listening to me today and thinking about these things and do your investigation, because several of these were signed and on the same date, which means they plot it down and say, sign them. My goodness, if you don't know what's coming, what are you going to do? And they're going to say, there's a deadline, we have got to have these things signed now. You know, in business, that happens a lot of times. And
I don't think I've ever signed anything in my life that I didn't have an attorney to look at it. Tom Majotis will tell you right now, sometimes he advises not to sign it.
myself,
And I
too.
signed it any time way because it was a matter of business that, you know, we wanted to do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't even think that's a good example, Dan. I really don't.
Well, but I think the whole point that Mr. Henderson's trying to make is that all of this is so new, and if those numbers even came across y'all's desk, that's a lot.
It may be
But
a bad
it's just
example, but it is an
informing.
example.
But it's an example. It may be a bad example, but it is an example of what a county did and may not have known what was coming.
And-
Or development authority in their county did.
And everybody in this room
Interesting.
knows if a business wants to have a contract with you, and if they write the contract it's gonna favor them. They're not gonna put a contract out there that does not favor them. In lawyer speak or layman terms, that's what it's gonna favor. So, just
That's why you do, that's why you do your due diligence, and you make sure that you got a lawyer, and they look at it. I mean, I just don't understand how that happened. I'd like to talk to those folks and just say, I don't think anybody in this room would even think about signing anything.
I certainly hope. Just do
I mean, we live in Irvin County and pay taxes. We got to pay taxes for a long time. I've got grandchildren that's probably going to wind up living here in Irvin County, so they are going to, hopefully they're going to be alive when that happens. So why would I sign something in debt those children?
Yeah.
I mean, grandchildren.
I hope you don't.
Well, why would I?
I don't know. I'm not
Unless
saying you will.
you got to get a lot more tequila than you could afford.
I don't drink.
But I'm talking about me.
But what I'm saying is, don't be surprised about these things, and do your due diligence. That's all I'm asking.
All right, well, it's 9:30 and we got, folks got other places to be. So.
I know.
All right, so I'll hear a motion to adjourn. So we'll have a motion, to a second, have a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign, motion carries.